At one point, I was public enemy number 1. Now I'm probably public enemy number 11. Whether I'm found innocent or guilty is going to affect nations. Unless Taylor Swift starts going to jail for everyone who crashes a car with a Taylor Swift CD in, everything that's happening to me is unjustified.
Do you believe in gender equality?
That's a trick question.
No, it's quite...
No, it's a trick question. It's fine, sir. It's fine. I've been around the block. If I was telling men to put a wig on and become a girl, I wouldn't be going through any of this legal trouble. Not a single drop of it. And here I am, a beacon of success. Brilliant. Tall, strong, smart, and funny. So it can be done.
And humble. Andrew, thanks for making the time.
Thank you.
Now, you're awaiting, as we talk, you're awaiting trial here in Romania. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, it's going to take a while. It looks like the Romanian judicial system often takes years to come to a conclusion before they eventually say I'm innocent. So the system it put me in jail for 92 days, and then I was released. Under Romanian law, I could have been kept longer, so I guess I'm happy about the fact that I'm free. I'm very sure of my innocence, but it's a long process. And in many ways, I thank God for giving me this experience, because when you grow up as a young man, you dream of being an explorer or an adventurer or being monumentally successful and having a bunch of money and fast cars and seeing the 5-star areas of the world. But perhaps if you want to truly explore the map, you also need to see the other side of it all. And I'm glad I grew up in a humble background and a humble beginning. And I'm also glad that I got to experience a Romanian jail cell and the Romanian judicial system. So it's God's plan.
Well, you did say there's not much justice in Romania. Doesn't that kind of taint your position?
Is there much justice in the world? Do you trust an American court nowadays with some of the decisions they're making? Do you trust a British court with the decisions they're making? What is a court? What is law? It's the interpretation of words which were written long time ago. How can different judges come to different conclusions based on the same law? Why does the lawyer you hire even matter if the law is fair?
Yeah, but I'm saying you're waiting their verdict here, so suddenly you've pointed the finger at them too.
Well, I think that when you understand the world, you understand that nothing in life is certain that involves people. We can talk about one of the highest courts of the land, the ICJ. What is law? Like what's being done about what's happening over there? Very little. So if you've ever been in a judicial process, you sit and understand that innocent and guilty is certainly part of it, but there's also a bunch of other factors, especially once you get to a certain level of fame, when you become so well known that your verdict will ripple around the world and it will cause consequence for nations. Then you have to sit and say, okay, whether I'm found innocent or guilty is going to affect nations. It's going to affect how justice systems are perceived internationally. Does that mean they're 100% interested in what's true and what's false and what's fair and what's not? Or is there a narrative being played behind where they sit and say, well, perhaps he didn't do anything wrong, but we're going to look bad if we say he didn't, so let's just put him in jail?
I'll get onto some of those points in a moment, but you've got civil court issues as well, accusers, and you've countersued. What would you hope to achieve with that?
What happens when you reach a certain level of fame is that, and anybody who's been fortunate enough to move from the lowest echelons to the highest echelons will learn that anybody they've ever interacted with in their life is going to come along wanting some degree of money or help. And that's fine. But there's also a bunch of people who are bitter, who you perhaps knew in your past, who want to try and benefit off of your fame. And that's what happens. And this is not unique. This is not an experience that only I am going through. I think you can name nearly any famous man in the world, and he has some form of civil charge against him for something that happened 20 years ago that he doesn't even remember, that probably didn't happen at all because somebody wants to finance their life off the back of you. This is just human nature.
You had your assets, a lot of your assets, taken by the Romanian authorities. Any chance for getting those back?
Well, I should get them back. What is law? What is court? What is a judge? What is fair? God is the only judge. And I truthfully have forgotten about all of them. I think it's around 15 million euros of cars, gold, watches, etc. I don't consider them mine anymore. I've forgotten about all of them. There's very little in this life you truly own besides your heart and your soul and your state of mind. I think those are the only things you can own. You can put me in jail, but I'll own my state of mind. I'll smile just the same. That's my decision. You can't take it from me. And everything else they can take from you, because unless you have enough guns to defend it, and you'll never have more guns than the state, it can be taken. You don't own houses, you don't own cars, you don't own anything else. And if you annoy the government, they're going to prove that to you.
Doesn't this view contradict what you say about making money and being the alpha male and being the guy with the possession?
Well, absolutely. I think that, in fact, I don't think it contradicts. In fact, I think it complements perfectly, because When you work hard to be the best version of yourself so you can protect and provide for the people you care about, you're pleasing God. And you do that so that you can wake up and show him the beauty of his own creation. I can be the best version of me. I can make the people around me have the best possible lives. I'm not going to sit and be lazy or not try. And I believe that's all about building your character. It's not even about the money. It's about being the best version of yourself. If all the money in the world was taken from me, that's fine, because I'm still been a person who's worked very hard, been very diligent, who's very intelligent, who can make it all back. And I've also enjoyed this journey of life, which has brought me here with the good and the bad. And I think the greatest sin a man can commit in the world today is being a fraction of what he could be. I think that's the biggest sin you can commit in the face of your creator.
I'm going to go on to your views on masculinity in a moment, but you and your brother Tristan spent time in Romanian jail, you mentioned. What was the biggest lesson you learned from that? What do you recall most, the worst period of that too?
It's a good question. I think jail is just a hyper-condensed version of life. As a man, you have to show other people respect, otherwise violence will happen very quickly. It's the same out here in the real world, but in jail it's condensed, it's pressurized. You have to have mental control, you have to have control of your own mind out here in the real world or you'll get depressed. Jail is the same, it's pressurized. So as long as you're good at life, you'll be good at jail. And I've never been a bully, I've never been an abrasive or aggressive person. I know how to respect people and make sure that I'm respected. And all in all, I don't think it taught me anything new, it just confirmed everything I knew about the realities of being human.
Now, there is the chance you will end up in the UK and in jail there. What did you think when you heard about the extradition notice?
Really interesting, because the UK has requested my extradition on some ancient charges from 2012. The warrant doesn't have any names. It doesn't have any locations. It doesn't even have any specific times. It only has a year. Quite interesting. I think the world is waking up to these tactics now. And I think the world is understanding that if you upset powerful people, they come at you with charges exactly like this. And I'm not the only one. We can name other people that has happened to. We can name somebody who's in Belmarsh right now because of it. So it's very common. It's actually quite scary, I think, that governments will come along and tell men at home to respect the rule of law. But sir, as a male, they could say to you in 2011, we won't tell you who, we won't tell you where, we won't tell you exactly when, we won't tell you exactly what happened. You committed assault, you must come here and go to court. That's pretty scary because none of it makes any sense. What is refreshing is I'll get a jury trial and people are awakened to this garbage now because this has been happening for too long. And also, I will not be looking at going to the UK for at least 5 to 6 years, at least, because I have to finish all my Romanian proceedings. So this is on the later base for now, and I'll handle it when the time comes. I'm very good at just dealing with things when the time comes. That's who I am. And truthfully, I'll be very honest. I mean, not to goad the authorities in any way, I'm not scared of jail. Nobody believes it. A guilty verdict will not make anybody believe it. Everybody knows it's a matrix attack, and I have no problems going to jail. So it's God's plan. And if I get a little holiday, then I'll take my holiday.
Interesting perspective on jail. But let's get on to your quote about having 3 stages of life. You talked about first stage, three challenges, if you challenge power, rather. In the first life, they cancel you. In the second, they slander you, delete your access to social media, and arrest and lock you away, which you said you've been through. And the third life means they will assassinate you. Are you really concerned about that?
I don't think I'm public enemy number 1 anymore. At one point, I was public enemy number 1. Now I'm probably public enemy number 11. And the old story goes, you don't have to be the fastest person when you're outrunning the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest guy. I feel like I'm getting there now. But those are the 3 stages. When you say things that upset power, they try and cancel you. They delete your access to speak. They delete all your access to social media because your ability to speak freely is directly correlated with your insignificance. They allow you to say whatever you want if nobody listens. People start listening, then you have to be careful what you say. So the whole free speech thing is garbage anyway. So they cut that off. If that doesn't work, then they'll find a reason to put you in jail, which they did with me. Somebody told them, find something. They made up garbage, and I'm not the only person this happened to. And if that continues to fail, then yeah, they will kill you.
Well, I wonder what you were thinking when Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, ended up in jail and died there, somehow mysterious.
I find that interesting, though, because I think the timing doesn't make sense. I'm not an expert on Russian politics. I'm not an expert on the internal affairs of Russia. I'm not Russian. I just feel like it got Putin quite a lot of heat. And I don't feel like it was an ample time for him to just commit an assassination. He was under enough heat. He had enough things going on. He just did the Tucker interview, I believe. In fact, a lot of people in the West have respect for Putin now, maybe not amongst the elites, but amongst the general populace because he's nationalistic and he's very competent, which is something we're lacking in our leadership. It just didn't make sense for him to do a bad guy thing. The guy was already in jail. I understand he died from complications of the vaccine. That's what I understand, but perhaps I'm wrong. Who knows?
Well, there was also, a number of people who've undergone similar situations in Russia. So, I mean, maybe that's a different thing. I'll move on, though. Let me ask
Russia's Russia. Yeah, no, Russia's Russia. I mean, every country has its own way of dealing with things, right? And nowhere's perfect. But I just think it's kind of hypocritical to us in the West. We look at all these other countries and we say, look, you can't speak over there. Oh, look what happens when you challenge power over there. Well, look what happens when you challenge power over here, my friends.
You're wasting time. You have 19-year-olds making millions while you're busy playing video games. Traditional education is too slow. You need to take life seriously now.
Right now, I'm currently 2K to 2.5 to 3K a week. I mean, I'm only 19 years old.
I show my parents like, oh, this is how much I'm making. Like, I don't really need to go to college. They saw the paycheck and whatever he's doing is working.
I'm 13 years old and I've made approximately $10,000.
New lectures daily on the new cutting-edge technologies and business practices, all on a world-class custom application. Hustlers University is the most up-to-date financial, educational platform on earth. And you get to choose your weapon. Artificial intelligence, copywriting, e-commerce, client acquisition, and more, with unrivaled student success.
20 to 22,000 a month.
£500 a week to build in 60 days a 60 grand revenue business.
You can learn from literal millionaires how they made money and they teach you how to do it.
$4,000 in 4 days, unbelievable.
Endless ways to make money.
I've done just over like 160k revenue now, 6 months later.
By the time you're done with it, you could be on the ocean selling fish water.
We are the only platform teaching people where the future is going. We are the only place up to date. Hustlers University will show you the future of business. We will teach you how money is made today. We will teach you subjects and business models not taught anywhere else. For only $50, we will equip you for the future. The world is changing fast. It will only get harder. It is time to take life seriously. Join the fight against poverty. Join the fight against slavery. Join Hustlers University.
Let me ask you about you talked about jail being kind of a reset for you, a little holiday, I think the way you described it.
Yeah.
What is your fear, though, of actually having a long term in prison? I mean, do you fear of dying in jail?
I don't operate in the realm of fear. I genuinely don't operate in the realm of fear. I have absolutely no fear of going to jail in Romania or England. I have no fear at all. I know I'm innocent. The world knows I'm innocent. Everybody knows this is a matrix attack. The idea that, and I can prove it's a matrix attack. I can prove it because would ancient charges from 13 years ago be trumped up and tried to press against me if I wasn't famous, if I was a normal person? Well, of course not. It's because I'm famous and they're trying to prove a point. They're trying to damage my influence. They're trying to damage my reach. The girls or whoever these people are, if they exist at all, want money. All of this is happening purely because of my fame. If my fame was in the hands of the establishment, if I was working for the MSM, like these other people who work for the BBC who've been caught being sexual predators, well, then it wouldn't be on the news. They're only doing it against me because I'm against the establishment. The whole thing's a matrix attack. It's all made up. And when you ask me on my deathbed, whether it's in jail or it's out here in freedom, are you glad you didn't sell your soul and fought against power for what you knew was right, even though they put you in jail? My answer is going to be yes, of course. I don't care about a big house and a bunch of cars. That can be taken from me anyway. But I care about looking in the mirror and knowing I am the man I said I was. So I'm going to say what I believe. And if they want to put me in jail for it, then they can put me in jail.
On a personal note, you and your brother, Tristan, were denied compassionate leave for when your mother, Eileen, was ill over Christmas. First, your thoughts on that and how it affected your relationship with her.
It's very interesting, this whole legal system, the whole legal process. It is very interesting because, like I said, you stand before a judge and you said, my mother's had a heart attack. Can I go see my mother? Here's the papers. She's had a heart attack. She might die. I haven't been able to leave this country for a year and a half. Can I go see my mother? And the judge will look at you and go, no. And it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what to say beyond that. It's a very interesting scenario to be in. And this is where we go down to what's law, what's real, because there's a lot of judges who would have said, yes, that's perfectly legal. There's a bunch of judges who say it's not legal. You have one lawyer who says, this is illegal, they can't do this. Another lawyer says they're not supposed to do it, but they do it all the time, they get away with it. All of it is just words. Yeah, and when you look at it, it's not just the legal system. You start to understand this entire world is just people walking into rooms and saying things. Government are just people walking in a room and saying stuff. An education system is just people walking in a room and saying things. The legal system, the medical system, just a bunch of people chit-chatting. So how it all plays out, I don't know.
You talk a lot about they. They will get you, they will come after you, they have a mission against you, for example. And you refer to the Matrix, kind of an elite group of people who have an agenda and work together. I mean, is that really possible? Or is it just simply a great phrase, the Matrix, and a way to kind of dismiss those who are challenging you and your views?
No, I think it's very clear that this world is run on deception. I think it's very clear that there are power structures which are designed to enslave the minds of people so they'll continue to allow their bodies to be enslaved. I think it's very clear that there's people who can't afford to eat anymore and inflation's out of control and the standard of living is declining and crime is off the charts. And they just try very hard to pretend that's not true with their various mechanisms of control. And powerful people have always wanted to exert control. And when I fight against or resist these things, I want the world to understand that I don't even take it personally. Even though they've put me in jail, I don't take it personally. I have 110 people who work for me. If one of them was particularly troublesome and disagreed with everything I said and didn't listen to me, I'd fire him. So if you run a country and you come along with your lies and your narratives because you want to profit or you believe it benefits you geopolitically, and you want to sit there and lie to the population, and the population believes it, and then there's this one guy, this top G guy, who's saying, no, this is a lie, and everyone's starting to pay attention to him, well, then you're going to do something about it. Anyone who doesn't understand that's how the world works must live in some fairy tale land. That's how the world works, and I've upset very powerful people by telling the truth about very important things.
The only thing is, when you talk about a matrix, it sounds like they're all colluding, and that's almost impossible.
Money colludes. Money colludes, power colludes. And you say, interesting you say that. I think the matrix is cracking in real time because people are being awakened to how much all of these systems based on fairness are simply a lie. They're simply a curtain, a distraction, a theater play to keep everybody believing in them. But you say that people can't collude globally around the world to exert power and control. I think there's a very interesting situation happening right now, which is an active genocide, where you can see certain countries can get away with whatever they want and other countries can't. And if that isn't proof of all the big money working together, well, then I don't know what more there is to say.
Yeah, Andrew, what's interesting is people like yourself have a massive voice now. Whether it's divisive or not, that's an issue. But you have a massive voice globally because social media has given you this incredible platform at a global level. It can have sudden and unexpected consequences. Aidan Ross, another social media influencer, happened to mention that he thought you wanted to desperately get back to the UK. The outcome was the UK reacted, and that triggered it. How did that affect your relationship with him?
Yeah, poor.
You guys were friends before.
Yeah, we're still friends, and I'm in a unique situation. It's kind of funny because this whole Aidan Ross thing, I'm not entirely sure that triggered the arrest, but you don't know. I'm very sure the Romanian state is extremely personally invested in my case. I'm very sure they understand their reputation's on the line. They're very afraid of anything going wrong with this judicial process. But I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to see it through to the end because I'm not afraid of them. So, yeah, the social media is social media, and there's a whole lot of crazy things that happen from it, but also there's a lot of good that happens from social media. I don't think people would understand a lot of the realities in the world today without social media. The veil has been lifted on a whole bunch of narratives that we've been forced to support for a very long time because of social media, which is why now governments in the West are panicking and passing laws trying to censor and stop social media. Free countries, democracy, free speech. Oh, no, not when you say what we don't like. So now they're coming along and trying to stop it all. And I have to say that Rumble, which is the platform I'm on, and also X, owned by Elon Musk, both of these platforms have been monumentally important for the freedom of humanity because I think we're entering an oncoming decade or an oncoming generation of slavery.
You were blocked, actually, on pretty much everything, and then Elon Musk changed his mind and gave you that option. I mean, do you owe him a debt of gratitude?
Certainly. I actually certainly do, because although I think the narrative against me, most people would have ignored it and not believed it anyway, because it's the boy who cried wolf and they've done it too many times. The fact I've been able to show the other side of the story has been extremely important. And also, I've only been showing 5% of my side of the story. And this is where you go back to my original point, sir. When we talk about the reputations of entire nations, I mean, people say Romania, like, oh, it's only Romania. Romania is a rich European nation. It's an EU member state. Are they going to allow their entire judicial system to be seen as corrupt and incompetent by letting me walk after destroying my life for years? Or are they going to sit and say, we have to save face here? I don't know. Nobody knows. But the fact is, I've only said 5% of what I know about how garbage the case against me is on social media because I'm waiting for the conclusion of this. And heaven forbid I go to jail, at least then everybody will know the absolute truth about the setup they purported upon me because I upset the people in power. And that's how the world works.
Another social media influencer, Russell Brand, was one also now faces charges and allegations against him. And you said you know things about him that people shouldn't, or that other people don't? What in particular?
Well, if I said that, then I'm not going to say them here, but I will say for sure that it's extremely coincidental when he started to talk the truth about the vaccine and how pharmaceutical companies operate, that he then got hit with these charges. It's very interesting. I mean, anyone at home who believes these charges when they come out against somebody, let me explain how simple it is. You can attack a pharmaceutical company and say that they're killing people with a vaccine, for example. The pharmaceutical company pays a lot of money of advertising revenue towards X media outlet. So they tell that media outlet, well, we're paying you. You better do a smear piece on this guy. Then they use the media machine, smear piece. They drum up as much hate as possible, especially if they cancel all your social media at the same time. They work together so you can't defend yourself. Then journalists start calling around everyone you've ever known, or they inspire the police to decide to dig into you and call everyone you've ever known. And if they call 2,000 people who you used to know, they try to find a crime. And especially when crimes are so subjective now, especially in the West, right? And emotional coercion. So when police call 2,000 girls or 2,000 men who you used to know across a decade and say, did he ever emotionally coerce you? And they'll say, well, what does that even mean? And the police will say, well, convince you to do something effectively. And she'll be like, well, he asked me nicely to bake him a cupcake. I guess that's emotional coercion. Before you know it, you got a UK extradition warrant, and they're telling you in 2012 you were emotionally coerced. It's all a scam. It's a scam. And anybody who is sitting at home who believes any of these charges, which seem to always appear against powerful men who speak against the system, need their heads checked.
Although the charges aren't exactly about baking cupcakes.
Oh, well, the charges are about a bunch of, again, subjective, garbage things. Emotional coercion, and I don't even know what my charges are. I haven't even been charged, sir. The UK government has not charged me. CPS has not charged me. They've just said in 2011, he told a girl to bake cupcakes.
Regarding Russell Brand, one of the things is that for a long time, you said for a long time, Russell Brand was the establishment of the Matrix himself.
Well, he was part of the mainstream news. Yeah, of course.
So, well, why would they go against him then?
Well, because he stopped being for the mainstream news. He worked for them and he was all over TV and he was dancing with all these girls and he had all these girls around him and they seemed to very much enjoy his company. And he was famous and he was on Channel 4 and he was doing Big Brother and he did all these amazing things. And then he stopped working for the MSM. He stopped, decided to start telling the truth. I believe he found God and he changed his life and he sobered up and started telling the truth about certain narratives. And all of a sudden, he's a criminal. Funny. Strange coincidence.
Is all the MSM, the mainstream media, that bad?
I don't think they're that bad. Well, sorry. Let me correct myself. Most of them are. But when you say bad, is a snake bad? Is a tiger bad? When a tiger kills an antelope and rips his throat out, is it bad or is it just being a tiger? The MSM is just being the MSM. They have their interests, which is either money or a narrative from a government, which they're told to enforce. The BBC is told by the British government what they want the people to believe. They are funded by the British government. If you're not funded by a government, you're funded by advertisers. You follow the money. You do what the money wants you to do. And that's the goal. I don't even see it as bad. I'm just realistic about how the world works. I'm not a fantasist. A tiger is not bad for killing an antelope, and the MSM isn't bad for lying. It's just their job.
So is social media the antidote?
It can be. And it looks like it's doing a pretty good job so far. It's certainly, like I said, lifting some very important veils. But how this ends, I'm not sure, because as the matrix cracks, as governments and as these huge, powerful banking institutions and all these people who control the money lose their ability to blanket control narratives, there's going to be a lashing out. And I feel like we're getting there now with certain legislation being passed. I think Scotland passed one 2 days ago. A lashing out is going to come against people who speak the truth. And a lashing out, I'm a victim of it myself. So it's kind of interesting. We've cornered the tiger of lies. And when you corner a tiger, they get extremely vicious. And we're going to see what happens next.
It's interesting you raise Scotland because J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, now herself has been the target of this. Now, I wonder how you regard that case.
Yeah, J.K. and I have actually had our disagreements. It was 5 or 6 years ago, J.K. and I actually had some disagreements. But it looks like she's finally come to senses and reason. I think we disagreed on depression. But for a while, she tried her very best to pander to these psychopaths who believe that a man isn't a man and a woman isn't a woman. She was walking the liberal line, as I understand. And it's very much like appeasing an alligator and hoping it eats you last. And eventually she's realized you can't appease these psychopaths and their parameters keep expanding and their insanity keeps growing. And eventually she said, no, enough is enough. And she's standing up and she's telling the truth and she's being brave. And for that, I commend her because that's exactly what we need more of.
So there's the Andrew Tate who talks about current affairs. We'll get onto some of those, more of those in a minute. But there's the Andrew Tate who's become known as this divisive figure when it comes to what a man should be and what role women should play. How do you regard that term they use sometimes to you, the king of toxic masculinity?
Well, I don't even see myself as divisive, and I think 99% of the world doesn't see me as divisive. And
you really think so?
I really think so. And what they say is toxic masculinity is simply masculinity in most of the world today. In fact, even in the countries now where they're going to try and pretend my message is damaging and dangerous, I say to men they should go work hard, get strong, go to the gym, be mentally disciplined, be stoic. All of these things were accepted by the entire population 10 or 15 years ago. I haven't changed my views. I haven't come up with anything radical or new. They've changed the parameters of what a man is. And they've lost their minds, not me. So I don't really believe I'm divisive. In fact, every single time a hit piece is published about me by the MSM, they turn the comments off. Please, you can check yourself. Every time the BBC, Channel 4, Channel 5, Australian News, whenever they try and do a hit piece on me, they have to turn the comments off because there's just thousands of comments saying you're wrong and he's right. A man should be a man and a woman should be a woman, and that's what makes families and society beautiful.
I'll get into that in a minute, but I mean, there are lots of people who love you. There are lots of people who hate you. So that is divisive, isn't it?
Well, I don't think you would have ever achieved anything in the world if you don't have certain people who hate you. That's fine. And there can be a contingent of the populace who hates me while I still remain eternally correct. I'm still right. That's fine. I mean, it's fine. And you could be the best thing in the world. It doesn't matter what you are. You can be a Ferrari and someone will hate you because you're too loud. I know what I'm saying is true. I know my message is overwhelmingly positive. I know I've had a massive positive impact on millions of people's lives. I know that in the end, as this arc completes and my innocence is proven, there's going to be a lot of people who have to apologize to me. If somebody wants to sit in their bedroom crying their eyes out because I said something they find mildly offensive, well, then I guess that's their problem.
Do you think there's any chance that you may have also had a very negative impact on many people's lives?
It's interesting you say that because I think if you actually want to be a professional, and like I said, I've analyzed all these things very non-emotionally, I think it's impossible to say anything positive doesn't have a negative impact under the right circumstances. There's no light without dark. Water is positive. You need water to live. You can drown in water. Music makes people happy. Yes, you can listen to music, you can feel happy, you can enjoy a party. It also sings about doing drugs. People become drug addicts. Like, I would like to believe my message is overwhelmingly positive. I tell people to train, to work hard, to make as much money as possible, to be stoic, etc. I'd be a liar if I couldn't sit here and say, well, I've convinced 100 million men to go to the gym and one of them dropped a dumbbell on his foot. Well, maybe, perhaps. I mean, but what can you do? You have to speak in generalities. Exceptions don't disprove the rule. The things I'm saying are generally good things, and the rules are generally good. So for them to come along and attack me as they do, this is what's so disingenuous about the mainstream media, because this is exactly what they do. I'll teach men how important it is to be strong, go to the gym, and look after themselves. They will then see thousands of kids go to the gym and work hard. They will then find one kid who goes to the gym who's maybe autistic, maybe he's not socially well conditioned, maybe he had bad parents, who knows, who starts walking around the school saying, I'm strong, and bumping into people. Then they'll say, Andrew Tate did that, and they'll attack me. That's as asinine, that is as foolish as waiting for somebody to crash a car and see that they were playing a Taylor Swift song and start saying that Taylor Swift fans crash cars. Because most people listen to Taylor Swift and don't crash their car. So the whole MSM narrative against me is completely disingenuous.
The thing is, I don't think the divisiveness comes from saying to men, get fit and be...
But it actually does, sir. And I apologize to interrupt, but it actually does. Australian News only the other day published some complete garbage about some female teacher who had to quit her job because she didn't feel safe in the classroom because the boys thought that it was a man's job to be strong. Masculinity is under such attack now that it is an act of resistance and rebellion to tell men to train and get strong. You can sit and say, telling men to be strong isn't why they attack you. Yes, it is, because when you tell men to be strong and have principles, they resist the slave programming. I'm telling men to make their own money and to get strong physically and to protect the people they care about and to say no to the programming. That's what they don't like. If I was telling men to put a wig on and become a girl, I wouldn't be going through any of this legal trouble. Not a single drop of it. If I was trying to convince men to castrate themselves, I'd be fine. But when I say, no, you're a man, you have to protect what you care about and stand up for what you believe in, no, then you're a problem. And it's a problem because they're trying to enslave all of us. And I don't think anybody at home actually understands where this AI tech and where the world's going. They're trying to enslave all of us. And when you come in as a conquering army, the first thing you do is you destroy the warriors. It's always been the same. You kill all the military-age males so that you're left with eunuchs, young boys who can't fight back, and girls. And they don't want men who listen to me or men like me because they know we would rather die.
Should men listen to you when you say that you can have as many children as possible, that if you have at least 10 children and 4 wives, you're a pussy bitch, I think you said, and genetic failure?
I said, no, this is a very good question. And again, we look at, sometimes I say things in hyperbole or I say things sarcastically for comedic effect. I do believe that children are extremely important. I do believe a man should have kids. I do believe we need families. I do believe the Western world needs more children. In fact, the Western governments themselves believe in it. That's why the populations are declining and collapsing. That's why we have to import people from all around the world, because nobody has kids. I believe a man's duty is to have children with the woman he loves, absolutely. If he loves more than one woman and he wants kids with all of them and they're all happy, consenting adults, I once again condone that. I think that a lot of the people running the world is strangely coincidental that none of them have kids. Have you ever actually looked at the people in the Western world, the people who are in charge of us, none of them have kids? Isn't that weird? Wouldn't you want to be like 65 and have no kids at all and just aim for the control of the entire population and to try and starve everyone to death? I don't know. Anyone without kids I don't trust, and I'll stand by that.
Some of the studies show that the reason the child production rate, if you like, has diminished is because people are trying to do the other side of what you say, make money and be successful.
I'd agree with that study. I would agree that the reason people are now not having as many children is because they're chasing money. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily down to the fact they want to be overly ambitious. I think they're chasing money because their government has destroyed their ability at living a fair and free and semi-comfortable life on any kind of normal wage. So when they inflate the currency to the moon, and when crime gets out of control, so you need to move to a more expensive house, and when your living standards collapse, of course you're not going to be trying to have kids because you're trying to pay your bills, and the government's done that on purpose. Very few governments are actually making initiatives directly aimed at trying to promote people having children. Hungary's done it. South Korea's just recently done it. But most of the Western countries' answer is just to open the border.
But does that make them genetic failures?
I wouldn't say. Well, let me answer this carefully. If you fail to pass on your genetics, you have failed.
Some can't.
Why can't they?
I mean, it could be genetic.
Well, of course. I mean,
but is that failure? Is that failure or misfortune?
That's very misfortunate. But if you're a man and you're alive for 80 years and you don't manage to have children at all, and not because of some misfortune, again, exceptions don't disprove the rule. We're not talking about people who are incompetent in some way. We're talking about people who can do it and don't do it because they're too busy trying to get a promotion at some corporation. Well, I think that's a failure. I think children are the most important and beautiful thing on this planet, and they should be your priority in all ways, yes.
I know you say things for comedic effect, it's sardonic and so on, but there are so many young, impressionable minds that listen to you.
Oh,
how much responsibility do you feel today?
I feel massive responsibility, and I think that a lot of the things I say that have been used against me, I said 10 years ago when nobody knew who I was, and it's kind of unfair for me to make a video that gets 60 views 10 years ago, and now I'm the most famous man in the world. It's going to be used against me. Of course, now I understand that with my massive power comes massive responsibility. I have to be a lot more careful how I say certain things because a lot more people will listen. I respect all of that. However, once again, this is uniquely used against me.
Why not correct them? Why not correct them now and say, look, 10 years ago I said this, I don't believe this to be the case anymore, I think that this and this should happen.
Well, I've done that, but I've done that for all the important ones, but I've also done thousands of hours of interviews, and also in this sliding scale, this never-ending tapestry of constant offense. A lot of the things I've said to you right here, right now, there's going to be people who take massive offense to it, and there's going to be someone else who's upset, some nobody, and I'm not really in the business of sitting down, apologizing to faceless nobodies all day long. People make these Twitter accounts. They have no fans, no followers, no face. It's anon. Or the MSM quotes an anon source. All this is just made up imaginary. Or people who have no relevance in society. And they sit there and say, Andrew, you offended me. Well, guess what? The world is harsh. The world is hard. You're going to have to get over it and live your life. You don't have to read what I say. You don't have to listen to my videos. I don't care that you exist, if you exist at all. So you can just move on. I'm really not in the habit of sitting down and apologizing to a bunch of insignificant people. I'm not going to sit here and dedicate my life to trying to make those people feel better.
I'm not thinking about the insignificant ones. I'm thinking about those who are your genuine fans, for whom everything you say is like the word of God.
Well, my genuine fans aren't stupid, right? My genuine fans aren't stupid. Once again, there may be one autistic kid who goes to the gym and walks around the school and acts like an idiot. I'm sure there's some idiot who's listened to 50 Cent and thought, that's it. It's time to shoot people and sell drugs. I'm sure there's some idiot who's done exactly that. But most people play a song and enjoy the song for what it is and then move on with their lives. I'm not going to sit here and assume all my fans are idiots. And I'm not going to assume they're all carbon copies of me either. I'm sure a lot of them like some of the things I say and disagree with some of the things I say because they're functioning adults, as we all are. I'm not responsible for the action of every single person who's ever heard an Andrew Tate video. And the world knows this, and the MSM knows this, and the police know this, but they're using it against me anyway because this is the Matrix attack. Unless Taylor Swift starts going to jail for everyone who crashes a car with a Taylor Swift CD in, everything that's happening to me is unjustified.
I'm sure you have a lot of fans who are autistic who are probably taking offense right now. I mean, do you have something against that?
No, absolutely not. I just gave an example. And it's an example because I do believe that genuinely happened. I do believe there was a child who watched my stuff, who had some kind of learning difficulty, who was repeating it over and over again. And I have to sit here and say, okay, I'm a man on the internet that makes videos. You're saying a child in Australia 3,000 miles away with learning difficulties, listen to what I said and repeats the phrases. I'm sure before he was repeating my phrases, he was repeating phrases from TV or from a song or from something else. How is this even how can I defend myself against this level of attack? Besides, do what they want, which is not talk at all. They're going to put me in a position where if I say anything, it's bad. If I say anything, it can be used against me. So the only way I can protect myself from somebody who I've never met 3,000 miles away repeating the words I've said on the internet is to not talk on the internet, which is what they want me to do, which is why they attack me with this garbage, and I utterly refuse.
Andrew, you're considered part of the manosphere, this term that describes a disparate group of, well, not necessarily disparate, maybe cohesive in some ways, a group of websites and blogs and influencers who have a very strong position on what masculinity is about. And you're put into that group, the manosphere, some of which is pretty extreme. How do you regard the manosphere?
I don't know who any of those people are in the manosphere. I don't have any association with any of those people in the manosphere. I can't speak for any of them. I don't know who they are. I can only speak for my own views. I would consider myself a political commentator, and I would consider myself somebody who comments on men's rights issues because nobody else seems to care. Nobody else seems to care that men commit more suicide, men are more homeless, men are the ones who are struggling in society today. We have no mental health support. Even if you look at something as simple as cancer, breast cancer gets all the funding, prostate cancer, nobody cares. Men are here to die, pay taxes, nobody cares about us, nobody cares about our feelings. And then they sit and say, oh yeah, men are depressed, that's strange. When I come along and try and offer a solution, they matrix attack me because the solution isn't the solution they like. Because the solution they like is to take pharmaceutical drugs and sit around crying at home. And I try and show something which is against the big money and against the big pharma. So I don't know who the manosphere are, but I am a man. And I will tell my story of how I live the best possible experience of being a man. And I'll help as many men as possible. And I'll highlight the difficulties that men go through. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Do you believe in gender equality?
That's a trick question.
No, it's quite...
It's a trick question. It's fine, sir. It's fine. I've been around the block. That's a trick question. I believe the genders are different, but equally important. I believe in equality in importance. I do not believe in equality in capabilities. I do not believe a man can have a baby. I do not believe the average woman can fight combatively against the average man. I believe we're built differently. I believe God has designed us to be different. We are two halves of a whole. And when a woman is feminine and a man is masculine and we work together, we create perfect unity, which is why we're designed to be different. So do I agree in gender equality? Yes. But that term is hijacked. That term is used as a Trojan horse for pretending that all the genders can do the same things. And that's not true. This is what they do in the Western world. They hijack terms. They come along and say, you don't believe in gender equality. I say, yes, I do. I believe we're equally important. No, because you don't believe that a woman can do everything a man can do. No, I don't, because she can't. And a man can't do everything a woman can do. We do different things. So I do believe in gender equality, but I don't believe in the new version of it that they're trying to purport on the populace because it's deliberately used as a weapon.
Let me ask you this then. A message you had for women was you said to them, we save you from the female inclination to make stupid choices.
Yes.
Don't you think men make stupid choices?
Absolutely. But I would argue that women make emotional decisions more often than men. I think men make more logical decisions because life as a man is a more logical place and we have to ignore our emotions more often. Staying on the Titanic is not a logical decision. It's not the smartest thing to do. You just sit and ignore your emotions and say, this is what I'm supposed to do. Women are more often and more in tune with their emotions, which is a superpower, by the way. This is why they're better at a lot of things. This is why they outcompete men in many things. But emotional decisions can often be wrong because they're exactly that emotional. And if you look at any happy household, forget the Andrew Tate attack. You look at any happy household on the planet, there is a man who is man of the house, and the woman comes to him for advice because he is the man of the house, and he is more logical and more stoic and more cold and calculated. This is the way the world has always been and still is, and for anyone to pretend otherwise is a matrix attack.
It is very much a generalization. I think there are very many strong women. I noted that you said about the lack of the man in the house. The disciplinarian, the person in charge, is responsible for society's ills, knife crimes.
This is the lack of fathers.
And yet, are you present as a father to your kid?
Absolutely. Of course. All I do is raise my children. And I'm in a unique financial circumstance. The fact that I can have so many children is because I'm unique financially. I think Elon Musk also has 11 kids. So it's not uncommon for billionaires to enjoy offspring at all. I think Genghis Khan had a few more than that. But this is common. But yeah, fatherlessness is the biggest pandemic. And when you say fatherlessness, I don't just mean a lack of man in the house. I mean a lack of man of character in the house. If the man is in the house and he's just soppy goo, well, then he's not going to do his job, is he? But if the man's in the house and is showing the benefits of discipline and hard work and taking the long road instead of shortcuts and doing the right thing because you're supposed to do the right thing as opposed to doing how you feel and ignoring your emotions and acting how you're supposed to act, well, then you're going to have a better society. So yeah, fatherlessness and lack of masculinity is what the society is suffering from. We need more masculinity in society, not less. And the fact they attack me and try and get rid of me is somehow toxic, and to move everything into this feminine frame of feelings and maybes and take depressive drugs when you feel sad and it's all going to be okay and men should be more in touch with their feelings. All of that is why we are the way we are.
Now, I don't normally bring personal stuff into my interviews. I'm very much there to hear the story. But I grew up without a father, and I would say my mother taught me the right things too. She taught me what the right things were. Yeah. And I wonder, surely women can also play that role.
Absolutely. Mothers are extremely important.
I mean, you say a lack of father, but in this case, the right kind of mother, or a mother who can be strong.
I would agree with you, but exceptions don't disprove the rule. If you were to look statistically, most males who are from a single mother household are more likely to commit crime than from a dual parent household. What's interesting is, my mother and father split up at age 9, and I spent all of my teenage years without seeing my father. And here I am, a beacon of success, brilliant, tall, strong, smart, and funny. So it can be done.
And humble.
So it can be done. But we have to talk in generalities. And in general, if you have two parents at home, it's better for the upraising, especially of boys, because boys commit a lot of the violence in society today. And this is another thing I want to make very clear. When we try and feminize men, which is what they're trying to do, they're trying to feminize men. They imagine these soft, eunuch version of men who sit at home and cry all day, and that is perhaps true. You do get some versions of men who act that way. But when you feminize a lot of other men, what you do is tell men to act on their impulse and act how they feel. And that's why you get crime. Murdering somebody is an emotional decision, as is rape, as is all these terrible, heinous crimes that happen. There are men with no emotional control and no self-control, told by society to act how they feel, expecting them to walk around talking about rainbows and butterflies all day. And instead, when someone makes them mad, they pull out a blade and stick it in his neck. So the whole thing is garbage. They're destroying society by destroying masculinity.
Andrew, isn't there a range, though? I mean, you're suggesting a man can't be emotional. And yet you say you're an emotional man sometimes.
No, I'm not suggesting they can't be emotional. I'm suggesting they should have control over their emotions. We should feel emotion, and we should control them. A man should feel angry when it's time to feel angry, and he should control it. As with sad and everything else, there's a time you must simply perform and do the right thing. Just as the men on the Titanic felt fear and ignored it and went into the water to save the women and children. This is the bottom line of masculinity since the dawn of human time, is to do what you're supposed to do because you have a duty, not to do how you feel. I'm sure the men in the trenches didn't feel like running over the top, but they had to because they were supposed to. That's what being a man is all about. And men should be waking up in the world today and say, I have to perform and act this way. I have to go to the gym even though I don't feel like going to the gym. I have to make money even though the economy is bad. I have to protect and provide for the people I care about. I have to do the right thing irregardless of how I feel. And the reason this is so important is because a small contingent of men do think this way. And you as a man will never be able to outcompete the people who do if you're going to act on feelings. If you're only going to go to the gym when you feel like going to the gym, you're going to constantly lose to the person who goes to the gym irregardless of how he feels, because he's there every day. And it's a very competitive world we live in, especially for men. And there's have-nots and have-yachts, and it's getting worse. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And if you're a man waking up in the world today in a normal life and you want to be anywhere, you have to be prepared to go against killers like me, with billions who work 18 hours a day every single day, who don't have a day off, in jail, out of jail, doesn't matter, want more. And if you're going to compete against me, you don't have time to sit around being sad, or you'll perpetually lose. And that's you're going to be a reality. You're going to be a loser. That's what's going to happen.
What if people don't want to compete with you at that level? What if they don't want a yacht?
That's fine.
They can still be happy.
That's fine. Of course, and they can still be happy. That's their decision. But if they sit at home wanting a yacht and not having one, well, then they have a problem then, don't they?
It's interesting. For a lot of people, the dichotomy of your life is an interesting one. You stated the view that modesty is feminine empowerment. Taking your clothes off on Instagram is not empowering. It's empowering to say that no man but my husband can see my body.
Correct.
And yet, your past, this contradicts your past, where you had women on webcams.
Correct.
And this is what you're accused of to a large degree.
Well, accused of, it's not a crime. So put it...
No, I mean the sense that, that contradicts, and especially, and we'll talk about you becoming a Muslim, but it contradicts your faith.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of life. The beauty of life is as we grow, we change. And I've been very honest and open about the fact that I used to have a business which helped girls make money on the internet. It's kind of funny because I grew up in Luton. I grew up in a council estate, single mother household, in a council estate. The most crime I was around. I was in the kids whose school who got arrested for murder. There was kids who stole cars and crashed the cars and died. My house was burgled 3 times. My neighbor's house was burgled. I knew drug dealers who were driving very nice cars at 19. I grew up around all the worst crimes. I didn't do any of them. None of that. What did I do? I helped people get traffic to a website. Oh, heaven forbid. If I wasn't famous, would any of this be even mentioned? No, of course not. So I did this back then. I was a younger man. I didn't know then what I know now. Now I have different morals and different principles and a different outlook on life, and I wouldn't do it again, of course. And I'm sure if you ask any 37-year-old if he thinks the same as he did when he was 21, well, they're probably going to say no. Jay-Z used to sell crack. He was a drug dealer. Now he's a mogul of the music empire. That's how it goes. That's life. Sometimes as a man, you got to get out of the ghetto. It is what it is. And I'm not going to sit here and say sorry for it or pretend to be sorry. I know that I didn't do a fraction of the bad things I could have done or was offered to do. I mean everything I said here. I mean that female empowerment is modesty. A woman who is powerful doesn't have to be ogled and stared at by random men, because when she decides to cover up, she's saving herself for the people she cares about or believe gets to see her. That is empowerment. I believe girls who get constantly naked on the internet are not empowering themselves. They're actually embarrassing themselves. I do believe that. Did I once profit from that 15 years ago? Yes.
So you've evolved.
Of course. I think I'd be a fool if I hadn't. Buckle the fuck up. We're about to get rich. Right here, Hustlers University. The only educational platform on the planet that will teach you how to make money today.
It may be impossible to not make money.
Being part of a community of students.
We all help each other. We're all in there for one thing, and that's to make money.
It's what allowed me to quit my job.
It's pure freedom. It's great.
Batteries released on every target you got now.
Then we have a deal.
Yes. That's a yes.
Target acquired.
Controversial influencer Andrew Tate has been banned from Facebook and
Instagram. You can get rich too. He's lying when he offers you that.
Fucking pyramid scheme, bro. This attack is an act of desperation.
Target remains. I repeat, target remains.
Despite the endless attacks, the banking cartel, the payment processors, we remain larger than ever before. And it doesn't matter what the Matrix tries to do to shut us down, it's not going to work, because the Matrix has cracked.
Welcome to the real world.
We have a completely custom platform. Nothing is Matrix owned. Completely custom software, completely custom banking. We teach things that you can't learn anywhere else. We teach it all for $49 a month. With lessons which are updated every single morning at 8 a.m. Cutting edge. To the minute.
Within the first 90 days of joining, I made like over $12,000.
And I also make over 10K. This is the best program to start a side hustle and get out of the 9 to 5.
All of the knowledge from the professors and Andrew himself, I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
I would expect this kind of course to come from a university. It's the best material that you're going to find.
A wealth of knowledge that will not only last you your entire life, but make you level up as a person.
You literally have like millionaires telling you what to do. So I just followed exactly what I had to do, and it just snowballed.
I was able to make $17,000 this month.
I've made roughly 25K.
I don't work a job anymore. I work for myself. If you want to escape the 9 to 5, there is no better place to be than the real world.
What made you convert to Islam?
I think Islam is the last true religion on earth. I think a religion's job is to preserve the society which adheres to it. And I don't think Christian societies are being preserved by Christianity. I think that Christian societies have left in a massive power vacuum. And this power vacuum is being filled with, one, the beauty of Islam. And the other side, it's being filled with an insane worship for the government and leftist insanity and climate change and abortion and all these crazy things that people are worshiping. The LGBT flag gets more respect than Jesus Christ in most Christian countries now. And I feel like with that massive power vacuum, a lot of the evils and Satan's agendas are simply being inserted into public space and public life. and you need God to resist evil. And Islam seems to be the only religion left on earth which is capable of saying no to the evil agendas. So to sit and say, well, I'm a Christian, that's great. And you believe in Christianity, that's great. You live in a Christian country, that's great. But your society isn't preventing the children from being convinced to castrate themselves. Well, then you need to have a long, hard look at your own religion. And that's not my religion to comment on. But when I feel a strong affinity for God, and I think anybody who does, you're instantly and constantly drawn towards Islam because it's real.
I'm curious how so many fighters have become Muslims. Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay the first one, Mike Tyson, and there's a whole list actually. Why do you think fighters become Muslims?
Because it's a warrior's mindset, Islam. Islam understands the brutal realities of life, and the brutal realities of life as a man is constant and never-ending war. And I mean that for every man on earth. You're at war right now. If you're at home watching this, you're at war.
Well, that's the term jihad, but it usually means a self-struggle.
No, it's perfect. Even better, self-struggle. You nailed it. That's what I was about to say with war. Getting to your job and back without losing your temper in the commute is war. Taking care of your family is war. Raising your children despite the government propaganda being injected into their ear is war. Maintaining a healthy body and mind is constantly war. Paying your bills is war. Life as a man is war. And when you're truly a warrior in your heart and in your soul and in your actions, and you understand how important God is, you're going to end up believing in Islam. You're going to end up being a Muslim.
When it comes to religious tolerance, are you tolerant of other religions?
If you tolerate everything, then you stand for nothing.
I agree that tolerance is a strange word, but it's used widely to imply...
It's a hijack. Tolerance is a hijacked word. So tolerance in and of itself, just like we talked earlier about gender equality, is a hijacked word that the Matrix has hijacked and taken a nice pretty word and they've hijacked it. Because when they say you must be tolerant, what they're saying is move out your house, give it up to asylum seekers, allow your son to chop his balls off. That's what they're telling you to do. So tolerant is hijacked. However, my brother's a Christian. I live with a Christian. It's not my job to be an Islamic scholar. I don't know enough. I'm a revert. It's not my job to go through and tell other people about their own religion. It's not my job to insult other religions. I can only say why I stopped being a Christian because I lost faith in the religion as a whole. That's my personal preference. That's all I can do. I'm tolerant of other religions. In fact, I think we need more God in the world, not less. I'm tolerant of religions. If I meet an atheist, perhaps I might look at him strange. Perhaps
you were for a while.
Well, yes, exactly. But perhaps I wouldn't do business with atheists anymore. Perhaps if someone sat and said, I'm an atheist, I would lose respect for them. I'll admit that openly on camera. But if someone were to sit and say, I'm a Christian, I'd say, okay, that's fine. Beautiful. You believe in God, I believe in God. The world needs more God. And I think that's very important. But this tolerant word we have to be careful with. We have to be very careful with this word.
I agree. It's accepting, I think, is a better word than tolerance, because tolerance implies putting up with something.
But the reason it's so important to be careful with this word is because one of the core tenets of being a man is intolerance. If you're a man, you're intolerant. You have principles, and principles can't be broken, which makes you intolerant. You have duty, which means you can't have your actions changed or psyoped out of you, which makes you intolerant. You have land you're supposed to protect. You have your people you're supposed to protect, your family. You don't want strangers turning up in your house. You're intolerant of random guests at 3 a.m. If you're half good as a man, you're intolerant of a lot of things. So I would never sit here and call myself a tolerant man, because that makes me a walkover, and I'm certainly not a walkover. I am tolerant, sure, but not in this hijacked sense of the word where I'm going to allow myself and my people and those I care about to be decimated by the insane agents of Satan.
Andrew, interesting you say you're a revert, not a convert.
Yes.
Why?
Well, we all start as Muslims, is my understanding of it. Like I said, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but I think what I found most amazing about my reversion, to be honest with you, is how similar it was to Christianity. It's really not as far away as people believe it is. And I feel like, especially in the Western world, especially in America, because I'm American, the white Christians see it as this far away religion from a far away place, and it's very, very different. Not understanding that Christianity and Islam were born from the same period of same place on earth, right? And we respect and worship a lot of the same people. And it's a beautiful thing. So we all start as Muslims, is my understanding. And like I said, I'm very careful how I talked about these subjects because there's people more intelligent than me. But it's closer to Christianity than I thought, which is also quite refreshing.
Are you ritualistic? I mean, do you pray 5 times a day? Is it something important to you? I'm not judging.
Sometimes I will pray 5 times in a day. I won't always manage to pray 5 times in a day. It's important to me, yes. I think it gives me a lot of mental clarity. I think it's a nice thing to do. I think if you don't have time in your day or you can't make time in your day for God, then what are you making time in your day for? What's more important than that?
Let's bring current affairs back into it, and especially regarding Islam, because ISIS, of course, has a particular reputation globally. On ISIS, you said ISIS are the real Muslims because ISIS do exactly what the book says. Now, you got pretty harsh here, saying kill everyone who's not a Muslim and chop people's heads off and set them on fire and raging lunatics and all this. I mean, it's. Do you still hold this belief, or was it merely rhetoric for?
No. So when I was an atheist, and I was giving my political commentary, I did say that. Of course, because this is a media interview, we are showing half of the clip. We're not telling the whole clip, because I also said the same thing about Christians. I also said that the Old Testament says, put to death anyone who does not work, who works on a Sunday. If you work on a Sunday, you should be put to death. Old Testament says it, Christians. And my point about the whole video was that when you believe in a religion, if you follow the book word for word, you can't exist in society. Christians can't kill everyone who works on a Sunday, even though the Old Testament tells them to. And if you try and do exactly as the book says word for word, well, then you're going to end up being seen as an extremist of some kind. I don't remember exactly what I said in that video, but I remember my overarching point. It wasn't anti-Islamic. It was how religious texts have to be watered down a bit for you to live a life. And Muslims understand that. Most Muslims, most Christians understand that there's a version of the religious text that they can't exactly adhere to. And then I was talking actually about how this eventually ends in the religion having no power at all, because I was talking about Christianity, saying that, well, if you ignore first part of the Bible, then you ignore the second part, you ignore the third part, in the end you ignore all of it, you say you're a Christian, you have no beliefs, etc., etc., etc. So yes, I said it.
You were saying actually you were actually supporting ISIS in its views in that one.
Well, I don't think I was supporting ISIS. I'm not trying to go back to jail anytime sooner than I have to, sir. I have to be very careful. I do not support ISIS. I do not think that innocent people dying under any circumstances is ever something that I would adhere to or I would support. It's not who I am as a person. I don't like that whole premise. Also, and I'll be very honest, I don't understand the true Islamic beliefs of ISIS. I haven't spoke to an ISIS leader or member. I don't know how he interprets the Quran different than I would. I don't know. So I can't comment on ISIS.
Now, in the case of the Israel-Gaza situation, you're accused of Israel of genociding Palestinians, and I've seen the interviews where you've been asked to condemn Hamas, and you've kind of skirted around the issue a lot. Wouldn't it be okay to condemn both sides for what's happening?
I'm a realist, but I'm also very careful, because I understand in many countries, saying certain things about Hamas puts you in jail. So let's not talk about Israel-Gaza. Let's talk about a fantasy land. The purple people against the blue people. I believe that it's inside of every single heart of every single person to resist and struggle against oppression. I believe that God especially made men, masculine men, since the dawn of time. All of our great stories and all of our history, all of our heroes were men who fought against oppression and oppressive forces and enemy forces. You want to talk about Winston Churchill? You want to talk about Napoleon? You talk about any of the Western world? You talk about Nelson? All of our heroes, the ones that are on the statues, are the men who stood up and said, enough. So in the purple versus blue people, perhaps the purple people would be oppressing the blue people for a very long time, stealing their land, and the blue people were eventually to stand up and say, enough is enough of this. We are tired and we're prepared to die to stand up for what we believe in, because we have duty and we have honor. It would be extremely asinine for anyone to sit here and say, no, you could just oppress people forever and they'll never resist. And if they resist, they're the bad guys. I also think that perhaps in this imaginary world, let's imagine there was videos coming out and you could truly see who was murdering babies and who wasn't. I think it'd be pretty clear for anyone with a functioning brain to understand what's going on. It's insane to sit and think that men should not have any kind of resistance inside of their hearts against deliberate and constant endless oppression. That's insane. And to sit here and say that's okay, once again, is insane. And to sit here and condemn both sides. No, I'm not going to condemn the masculine spirit of resistance. I'm not going to do that because that's disingenuous.
You know, Andrew, it's interesting the comments you make about where men should stand in society and the kind of empowerment they should have or have. It sounds very Darwinian, survival of the fittest. Do you adhere to that idea that it's about it's about survival of the fittest?
Yes.
So it also means that if a woman is physically stronger than a particular man, she's got the edge on him.
Well, of course. I mean, we can sit here and talk about exceptions disproving the rule all day long. No, we can.
You're right,
we can.
you're right,
you know,
you're
right? You know, there's some people who can swim faster than a fish, and we humans are faster swimmers than fish because there's one swimmer which is faster than this one kind of fish. Let's talk about this all day. Is life survival of the fittest? It always has been. It always has been. And it's the same for, it's always has been, and it's the same for ideas. It's the same for ideas right now. We just talked about religion. A lot of people in the West are upset that Islam is conquering the Western world. That's not Islam's fault. That's Christianity's fault. You've left a power vacuum. You don't allow people to worship God and feel respected in any way. So it's being filled by a religion where people can worship God and have their views respected. That is Christianity's problem. And for us to sit here and say, do I believe the world is survival of the fittest? I would like you to name a time in human history, since the dawn of human history, where it's never been survival of the fittest. I ask you, sir, a question, my first one. Has it ever not been?
The reason I asked you that question is because I wonder how you draw on that for possibly explaining colonialism. The stronger nation takes the weaker one. Or even what's happening in Gaza with Israelis, of course, being the stronger nation physically, militarily. Isn't that also survival of the fittest?
Well, it's interesting that firstly you didn't answer my question.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I know. I do agree. My background's science, so I do agree. But I tend to keep myself out of the interview if I can, but I'm asking you because I thought about this, thinking about Darwinism. You could talk about colonialism that way. You could talk about anything that's happening now. The guy who has the muscle and the power can do it.
And that's the way the world is. And before I comment particularly on that exact subject, that's exactly the way the world is right now. But you have powerful versus weak. But let's not confuse that with right and wrong. They can be very different things. I'm an innocent man who's done nothing wrong. But when 50 men with machine guns come here to my house and drag me out of my house, they're powerful, I'm weak, I have to go to jail, even though I'm innocent. Right? So let's not conflate the two issues. We can talk about the fact that colonialism has been perpetuated by extremely powerful countries, which would come, all of Europe chopped up Africa. They'd come, they'd take all the natural resource, they'd enslave the populace. They were more powerful, they had gunpowder, they had more organized armies, and they did all of this because they were powerful and they were weak. There was a power vacuum, just as we discussed with religion and ideas, and they took control. That doesn't mean it was right. That doesn't mean the people who were being subjugated who deserved it. We can talk about good and bad, and we can talk about evil, and we can talk about righteousness, and then we can talk about the life we live here on earth and power structures. They're actually not very related. So I understand what you're saying, but these are different conversations, sir.
You discussed Donald Trump becoming president again in 2024, and you said, yeah, we all want Trump to win. That'll be amazing for the culture. And some say it's just kind of another multimillionaire with this, big voice and
billionaire.
You're a billionaire. Okay, so well. Though you refused Forbes' assessment, is that correct?
I'm not going to tell Forbes all the money I've got. They'll send it right to DCOM. They'll send it straight to the police.
All right, so let's say another multi-billionaire with a big voice and big platform facing a lot of legal challenges at the moment. Do you think that Trump is also being, pursued by the Matrix?
Do I think? Sir, I know. Everyone knows. The charges against him are complete garbage. The cases against him are complete garbage. And they're doing it to try and stop him getting in power because they don't want him to be president, because they'd rather have a president who doesn't know what's going on so they can just tell his advisor, here's X amount of million, pass this law. That's what they want. The shadow figures want to control the world, and they don't want to have an employee, which is what they'd see him as, just as I described in my imaginary company earlier, who's belligerent. They don't want to have somebody in charge who you can't buy or bribe or blackmail or scare. Trump is going to sit there and say, I have enough money, I'm too old to want more, and I care about my country, I'm going to do what's right for the country. I'm not going to do what's right for you, the big interests and the big money and the globalists. And that's why they're trying to take him down. It's absolutely and utterly, completely a matrix attack. And when I say it's important for the culture, because it is, because Trump is a masculine man in a world where being masculine is instantly bad for some reason. And it will be massively important for the culture, just as I've been a cultural icon, so is he. And so will he help push the culture in the positive direction of healthy masculinity. So it's extremely important for the culture, and also it will slow the rot. I don't believe it can stop. Truthfully, I don't believe he can stop the rot of Western nations. But he can slow it down, which has to be a good thing. Let's delay the sinking of the Titanic for 4 more years. Why not? And who's his serious competition? Who's going to run against Trump? Name someone competent running against Trump.
Do you feel, with what's going on with the royals, you grew up in Britain, in Luton, and as you described, impoverished family. I don't know, but how did your family regard the royals at that time?
I miss the Queen. I miss the Queen. She wouldn't allow any of this junk to happen. If the Queen was still around, the OG, she wouldn't allow any of these fake photos, missing Kate Middleton, all this garbage going on. No, she would have got it all under control, went to Kate, made sure she was okay, went in front of the news, did an interview, fixed it. I feel like the royal family died when the Queen died. I don't know why I've come to that assessment, but I have. And it's very sad to me because although we can talk about the royal family being part of the elites and being part of the Matrix and the Rothschilds and the banking sectors, we talk about all these things, but I think the world is going in the direction it's going because it lacks tradition. I think especially Western nations are becoming so flawed as a whole because they're lacking a culture and a tradition. I think anything that's cultural or traditional, we should try and hold on to, especially in Western countries, because in other countries they do. but in Western countries, they don't. And when she died, I was very upset because I knew that respect and interest in the royal family was going to decline instantly and massively. And as usual, I was absolutely correct.
You've commented on Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, saying she is not black. And I wonder, as a man of mixed race yourself, how you regard that kind of
she's not black
statement. Well, then if that was said about you, how would you relate to that?
Well, that's fine. I'm mixed race. I mean, she's lighter than me. I mean, it's just, I'm not going to, I just find it amazing that we have a person who is so light-skinned crying about the fact that she was attacked for being black. And there's black people, genuinely black people, standing on the news saying, yeah, that's true. She had a tan. Italian, maybe. I mean, she had a tan. She was in the sun. That's fine. But to sit here and pretend that she's African, like she's from Sudan, is an objective lie. But here's the thing that's so crazy about the world. It's an objective lie. She is not black. Everyone can see she's not black. But saying that, everyone's scared to say it. Everyone thinks it, right? It's because, well, good job the Matrix has done on us all. Everybody at home looks at her and goes, that's not a black person. That's a mixed race person or an Italian person or a Portuguese woman, maybe. But we're not allowed to say it. Oh, if you say it, because they got everybody scared to talk. And that's what they want. I'm a mixed race person, which is actually quite interesting. I want to make one more point. Usually when you reach my level, when you get hit with the Matrix attack is always a weaponized virtue, right? So they find something virtuous, like loving women or protecting women, and they weaponize it, misogyny, and they attack you with it. So it's always weaponized virtue. Typically, at my status, you get attacked with racism. It's the most common weaponized virtue they attack you with. But because I'm mixed race, from America, from England, 2 different races, living in Romania, I'm all over the place. They can't really use racism on me. So they haven't tried to make that one stick. So it's one of their weapons bounces off of me, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm not a racist for saying I have 2 sides of my family. One side's white, Irish, as white as you get. One side's black. I can say, that's my black family. This is my white family. That doesn't make me racist. You're a black person, you're a white person. It doesn't make me racist. It's not offensive. I'm not saying one's better than the other at all. I don't see the offense in this. And this is normal. And once again, they've somehow psyoped the population to saying it's wrong to say somebody's skin color. If somebody white stands in front of me and says they're black and they're being discriminated against because they're black, and their experience inside of the royal family, the most rich and famous family on the planet, is bad because they're black when they're not black, I'm going to sit here and say this is bullshit. Because it is.
I'm going to pause for a second because we lost the light there for a second. Yeah, but it's okay, it's back. The sun went in. As you said, I'm not, racist. You suddenly went dark, which I thought was very ironic.
Perfect footage.
Yeah, I wonder how people are going to respond to that. We're good? We keep going. All right. I'm interested how the artificial intelligence, AI, will fit into what's happening with what you describe as the Matrix. I mean, I know you commented, you said the rich-poor divide will continue to increase. The average man is becoming obsolete. I'm warning you, you said. It's no longer enough to be an average guy. The average man's life is only going to get worse. You need to become great.
Yep.
Isn't that easier said than done for most people?
Absolutely. It's absolutely easier said than done. Because to become great means you have to be exceptional, which means that even as the average improves, as the medium or mean improves, it becomes harder and harder to become exceptional. Yes, that doesn't mean it's not true. I'm not here to give everybody happy lies. I'm not going to be like the Matrix and give everyone comfortable, happy lies, because that's what they do. They sit and say, don't worry, just go to school and work hard in school. Don't worry, just go to college and work hard in college. Don't worry, just get in university debt. Don't worry, just get a career, then get a mortgage. Pay your mortgage, pay off your student loans. Don't worry, when you're 68, you might be able to go on holiday. Don't worry. Take your injections, take 9 or you lose your job, then you lose your house, then you lose your family, then you lose everything. Don't talk out of line. Don't write on Facebook or you lose your job. You have student debts to pay. Be quiet, be good. Happy lives, you'll have a good life. No, that's all a lie and it's all garbage. I'm not going to sit here and give sugar-coated lies. AI is going to make the average person absolutely obsolete. That is a fact. It's going to become harder and harder for anybody to have any significance in the world today unless they're an exceptional person. That is a fact. That is hard for most people to do. True. But you better find a way to pull it off, because once you become a useless eater, once you become somebody who needs food and is no use to the people who make the food, you're going to soon learn that throughout all of human history, it ended the same way for those type of people.
So you do see AI as dangerous. I wonder how quickly you think this impact is going to take place.
30 years max, 20 years, maybe by 2030. I see AI as dangerous because it's in the hands of government. What do governments always want? More of. Control. Now they're going to get the ability to get more control. So they're going to use it. And it's going to get to a point where you can't go out your house without getting scanned by some camera with the QR code stamped on your forehead. And if you've ever written anything on Facebook they don't like, you're going to pay the price for it. You're not going to be able to drive where you want, fly where you want, eat what you want. You're going to have no freedom. You're going to own nothing, and you will not be happy, and you won't even be able to resist. If there is a protest somewhere in the city, when you get in your electric car to try and drive there, your electric car will turn off halfway there because that zone has been de-electrified by the matrix, by the AI machine. And once all of this happens, it's over for everybody. Soon the robot police will be turning up at your door. You can barely reason with these agents of the Matrix now. Police officers have lost their minds to the point where they're going to blindly comply during COVID and beat the shit out of old ladies. We don't talk about it anymore ever, by the way. Every time I meet a police officer, I say, weren't you beating people up for not wearing a mask 2 years ago? And they just kind of laugh it off. Yeah, I guess. Oops. It's just funny now. But there was some of them you could kind of talk to and say, bro, she's an old lady. Stop punching her in the face for her own safety because she doesn't wear a mask. But wait till they're all robotic. Then they'll just get the order. Wear the mask or get shot on the spot. It's coming for everybody. And the only chance you have to escape any of this is exceptionalism. Exceptional finance and networking capability. There's no other way about it. And if you're the average person sitting here going, my life's going to be fine, you are in for a very, very rude awakening. The average person's life in the 1950s, the average man could go and work in a factory and come home to a big house and have a wife and kids and 2 cars on the drive from working in a factory. Now we have a man and a woman both working full-time jobs with university degrees, can't even pay the bills.
Or have kids.
Or have kids. The average person's life is going off a cliff. The trend is clear. I'm not crazy for pointing it out. So if anybody wants to sit here and disagree with me, that's cope. They're just being an ostrich and hiding their head in the sand and praying for better days. That's their decision. But yes, it's going to be certainly very difficult to become exceptional, which means you don't have time to sit around worrying about how you feel. Isn't it amazing how everything goes full circle? Men don't have time to sit around crying their eyes out and saying how hard it is and dealing with their feelings and being sad and being depressed and doing all this garbage the Matrix tries to tell them to do, because the reason the Matrix tells them to do those things is so they get funneled into the slave force for the life I just laid out before. Instead, you have to wake up and say, this is almost impossible, but I'm going to do it. And you have to get it done, just as I have, from Luton Council estate to billionaire to jail to billionaire. Maybe back to jail.
You know, it's interesting. On my flight over here from Dubai, I noticed a lot of South Asians on the flight coming in. And I know you've commented about the situation in Romania, how when you first came here, I think about 8 years ago, there weren't many immigrants, and now the country's changing. Yeah, if you're worried about that here, you yourself have come here. Isn't there a pang of hypocrisy there?
Well, there's a degree of hypocrisy, but I'm going to be hypocritical, and the reason for that is because I'm rich, and rich people are always welcome to go.
Say what you like, yeah.
Well, rich people, the world is elitist. It's the reality. If you're a wealthy person and you come into a country, they have no problem with you because you're wealthy and you're a net benefit to the economy. I also have no problem with Southeast Asians coming here. The actual comment I was making is that when I moved here 8 years ago, absolutely everybody was Romanian. There was no foreigners at all. I was the only foreigner I ever saw. Now there's a lot of foreigners coming from lots of different places. And the point I was making was actually this. I said it's interesting how, because Romania is part of the EU, but it's an Eastern European country, it's now being forced to adhere to EU doctrines in terms of opening their borders and allowing people to come in. I'm saying that's going to inevitably create conflict. It always does. There's going to be different ghettos or different areas or language barriers amongst police and people who are trying to get arrested, so it ends in violence, whatever it's going to be. I'm saying that in Western countries, this was very gradual. It happened across 50, 60 years at the end of World War II and Windrush and all these things. Plus, we had a colonial interest in these countries. You could say to the British population, well, of course, people from Africa or Jamaica are coming here. We went there first. We had a colonial interest. They're also British. They're part of the empire. They're now coming here. Then that mind frame plus a slow process made people accept this. My point was how this will all play out in Romania, a country that has no colonial interests, has never been to these places, has never had an empire, never been anywhere. And it's now happening so suddenly and so quickly and so instantly, not across 40 years, the local population might react violently, and it might be very visceral and clear to see how instantly they get angry. Let's say there was a high-profile rape, for example, against a Romanian woman from a migrant, because they're going to say, well, we don't want those people here. We've never been there. We don't have an empire. We have no interest in them, and they've all turned up in the last 20 minutes. What are we going to do about this? That was my question. It was a social commentary, and it was a question, and it was going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Understood. Now, I don't know if you've done this before, but as we kind of wrap up this part of the interview, are you up for doing 10 quick-fire questions where you just literally give one word or one sentence answers? You want to try it?
Let's do it.
Yeah? Okay. So, first question. Where would you live if you were free to travel anywhere today?
Dubai.
When did the Matrix begin and who started it?
Fiat currency. Let's let people investigate fiat currency and they'll get to the bottom of that question.
Briefly, describe a 60-year-old version of Andrew Tate.
25 sons, multiple world champions across combat sports, probably still hated by the Matrix, somewhere in one of the stands, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, maybe Philippines, hiding out, big mansion, big muscles.
Worst insult, biggest compliment.
Worst insult, coward, and the biggest compliment is brave. They must be true. They have to be inverses of each other, right? It would be unprofessional for me to say that the biggest compliment is not an inverse of the biggest insult.
What are the 3 things which appear most frequently in your dreams or nightmares?
That's a very good question. I'm often fighting. That happens a lot. I'm often resisting or fighting or trying to push a door or close something. That happens a lot. I often lucidly dream. I'd say 90% of the time I dream lucidly. So I work out, I'm in a dream halfway through the dream. This happens to me all the time. Something will happen and I'll say, that can't happen. Wait, I'm in a dream. And then I'll say, oh, I'm in a dream now. So this is boring. And I'll just sit down and wait for it to end. That happens a lot. And those are 2, but those are the 2 most.
You're going to love this one. Fury versus Joshua, Musk versus Zuckerberg, Joe Rogan versus Piers Morgan.
Wow. Okay. So Joshua and Fury, I both have massive respect for. I like them both. You got the Gypsy King and you've got AJ, who I know well. And I can't make a call on it. I just wish them both the best with their careers.
Musk, Zuckerberg?
Has to be Musk, because Zuckerberg is pro-censorship and Musk isn't. And there's nothing more important in the world today than the ability to speak freely. So Musk is literally saving the world.
And Rogan versus Morgan, Piers Morgan.
Oh, that's Joe Rogan all day. I don't actually have anything against Piers. Piers is all right. Piers is a nice-ish guy. He's all right. He refuses to condemn Israel, though, which I find extremely disappointing.
What's worse, being wrong or being irrelevant?
I think being wrong. Because, and I'm going to expand on this, if you're irrelevant globally, but you're right, you're still doing a very important job. There's a whole bunch of men in the world today right now who are irrelevant globally. They don't have names. Nobody knows who they are like they know who I am, who work a normal job like a garbage man, but they do a very important job. They carry the garbage, which must be done. I have absolute respect for these people. They get up every day. It's hard work. They raise their family. They try and raise their kids. They try and be the man of their house. And they may be irrelevant globally, but they're doing the right thing. And that's more important than being well-known and wrong like a lot of these clowns we have in the world today.
This is quickfire, so I'm going to keep going through them. Would you ever get back in the ring following the success of YouTube boxers like Logan and Jake Paul and KSI? And which one would you most prefer to fight? Who would have the best chance against you?
None of them have a chance against me. I have my own fight now, and it's a bigger fight. It's a legal fight that's going to go on for the next 5 to 6 years, so I'm pretty busy in the fighting sphere.
We touched on this, but again, a brief answer. In the eyes of many young men globally, you're seen as a positive influence. Does this place pressure on you to meet their expectations?
It puts a pressure on me to perform at an optimum level in all ways, but I've always had the pressure to be excellent because my name is Tate, and that's the creed of my last name.
If you could change one thing about your personality, what would you change?
Absolutely nothing. I'm happy with all of me from head to toe. I do not make myself an enemy in any regard. I wouldn't change a thing.
All right, that gives me a chance for a bonus question then. You say you don't have fear, but but is your greatest fear that people will discover this is all an act? You're capable of being much more agreeable, of course, when you're off camera. And is this an act?
I don't think it's an act. Off camera, depending on the subject that's being discussed, I'll say the exact same things. I don't think it's an act at all. I don't have any fears because I understand that God has a plan for me and I'm going to fulfill his plan regardless of what it is. If I die tomorrow, I die tomorrow. I don't see the point in operating from a realm of fear. I actually think also the Matrix has done a fantastic job of proving I'm exactly the man I say I am. They've made a big mistake when they attempted to take me down with all of this garbage because they canceled all of my things online and it just made people think, why are they deleting this guy? Which made people look at my views and realize I'm actually saying a lot of things which are true. And then they realized that failed, so they decided to throw me in jail. And it's kind of interesting. I became globally well known for being the top G, for being the guy who's mentally strong and can do anything. So they throw me in a Romanian dungeon, which of course is pretty much most people's worst nightmare. And on my second or third day in there, I remember looking up to the sky and saying, thank you, God, for giving me this chance to prove I am the man they say I am. If I was still in jail right now, or if I was in jail for 5 years, I would have come out as big and intelligent and capable as a bigger beard, perhaps, but as capable as ever. And I would have come out and still performed. I would have sat down with Lucy from the BBC and ripped her apart just the same. That's who I am. I'm the top G, and they gave me a chance to prove it. So thank you very much, Matrix. None of this is an act. I'm absolutely built different from head to toe.
Well, Andrew, thanks for the time. Always so many questions, never enough time.
Thank you, sir.
Before I left the Tate compound, there was time for a few additional questions as we passed a lineup of luxury cars. But as it turns out, these cars don't actually belong to Andrew Tate. Andrew, it's nice to come out here and just have a look at some of these things you've got. Now, when did your love for such fancy cars grow, and what was the reason for it?
Very interesting coincidence. It was in direct correlation with me getting rich. So it all worked out pretty well. Now, I think all men love cars. I don't know why. There's something visceral about driving, which I've always loved.
But I thought the Romanian government had taken a lot of these.
Yeah, they've taken all my car collection. These cars are rented. I don't own any cars.
Ah, right,
yeah,
okay.
I don't actually own any cars. They're, of course, rented because I, of course, don't own anything.
I know you've touched on this when we sat down and talked, but what's your view on the woke culture?
The woke culture is a culture of losers. They're a culture of people who have no virtues at all. Culture of people who fail permanently. So to make themselves feel better about failing, they want to attack everybody who's above them. Hate never comes from above, it comes from below. They're people who achieve nothing. So when they look at anybody who's achieved anything, they find a reason to hate on them for it. They find a reason to say you're a bad person because of the business you're in, or the things you say, or the car you drive, or your political views, or your marriage views, or your dating life. They're people who've achieved nothing at the bottom, just trying to crab bucket everyone who's more successful than them back down to loserdom.
Has nothing good come out of it, though? I mean, for some people, it's been a kind of balancing or redressing of prejudices and stuff.
No, nothing good has come from woke culture. The woke culture is a death cult. These people just want everybody to sit at home. The only way you can offend nobody is to do nothing and just pray for big government to give them enough bugs to eat so they can sit there and complain on Reddit. They're losers. Objectively, they're losers. They have achieved nothing, and the entire culture is destructive to humanity as a whole.
Harsh, but I know you don't care.
Don't care at all.
Let me ask you, would you ever run for political office?
Well, do I want to get assassinated?
I mean, could you run for political office? I don't know, but if you could, would you?
I probably could. If a day ever comes when I run for political office, it won't be quite yet, but I'd like to think I've built a pretty good base so far, so I'd get a pretty large voter turnout. And if I ever became in charge, I would make sure that I did the absolute best for my country and for the people inside of my country, as opposed to adhering to globalist garbage.
On which issues would you campaign?
Well, I think perhaps in 20 years the issues will be different, but perhaps not. I think they've always been the same. People want safety and security. They want to make sure their money has value. They want to feed their family, and they want to have a strong border which is protected to make sure that people who are there are supposed to be there, and they want to live peaceful and happy lives.
In the sit-down interview, we talked about a lot of things, and we talked about your evolution over time and your thoughts and your views. What do you believe your legacy will be?
I think my legacy will be that I always made the brave choice. Life isn't always sometimes about winning or losing. It's about making the choice which was brave. There's plenty of people who charged at the gunfire and got shot and died there on the battlefield, but they were the brave ones. And as the Matrix cracks, I've been massively influential in its damage. And as people finally wake up and understand that this was a pivotal point in human history where they stood a chance of actually damaging the Matrix and the control mechanisms, they're going to wish they were braver. And I was the brave guy. If I die at the end of it all, then I died. But at least I was the brave one.
Andrew, thank you.
Thanks, friend.
You're wasting time. You have 19-year-olds making millions while you're busy playing video games. Traditional education is too slow. You need to take life seriously now.
Right now, I'm currently 2K to 2.5 to 3K a week. I mean, I'm only 19 years old.
I show my parents like, oh, this is how much I'm making. Like, I don't really need to go to college. They saw the paycheck and whatever he's doing is working.
I'm 13 years old and I've made approximately $10,000.
New lectures daily on the new cutting-edge technologies and business practices, all on a world-class custom application. Hustlers University is the most up-to-date financial, educational platform on earth, and you get to choose your weapon. Artificial intelligence, copywriting, e-commerce, client acquisition, and more, with unrivaled student success.
20 to 22,000 a month.
£500 a week to build in 60 days a 60 grand revenue business.
You can learn from literal millionaires how they made money, and they teach you how to do it.
$4,000 in 4 days, unbelievable.
Endless ways to make money.
I've done just over like 160k revenue now, 6 months later.
By the time you're done with it, you could be on the ocean selling fish water.
We are the only platform teaching people where the future is going. We are the only place up to date. Hustlers University will show you the future of business. We will teach you how money is made today. We will teach you subjects and business models not taught anywhere else. For only $50, we will equip you for the future. The world is changing fast. It will only get harder. It is time to take life seriously. Join the fight against poverty. Join the fight against slavery. Join Hustlers University.